Soulless Dead Brotherhood, Chapter 18, Martyr. About a week had passed since Sam had told me that they were going to leave. Every day I'd keep my ear to the ground, so to speak, to see if they'd left. That was a lot of people he listed. And I was always worried that would they be able to slip away in the middle of the night or just be able to walk right out the front door. The words that he spoke wouldn't get out of my head. They were buzzing around like annoying gnats. I was worried. My parents were worried, and every night we'd sit down for dinner, there'd be less and less food on the table. My mother would reassure us it's just to make sure we have some food for the next few weeks. But with Sam's knowledge telling me, I knew for a fact that wasn't true. My mother would put on a nervous smile, and my father would smile and say, well, at least we're thinking ahead. But I knew the ulterior motive. They just didn't want to get me upset. I knew that it was only a matter of time before we ran out of food, and it was getting colder. Every night when I go to bed, the wind would howl, and I can at times hear sleet hitting the window. It was quiet, rhythmic, and oddly relaxing. But with what Sam had told me, it was very disturbing. Would any of us really be able to survive this? I'd have to slap myself out of it and go, well, sure we could survive it. The pioneers survived with less. Why can't we? But then I'd slump back into my bed and realize that we're pampered. Heck, back before all this started, I thought camping was the worst thing ever. You mean living? I said. 85% of the world is living in dirt huts, and we're calling it a recreational thing. I always hated it. But kind of wish I would have paid attention a little more. I've been helping a lot at the clinic, and it's been getting cold, and I could hear my dad and Dr. Patel and the others arguing in the middle of the night as I was helping some of those who were staying overnight. The guards would post up, and I could hear them talking. I eavesdropped once, and I could hear them talking about how there weren't any flu shots, and there just wasn't enough supplies. People are going to start dying, and then my dad would cut in and tell them that we have to keep faith, and we gotta hope things will turn out okay. Dr. Patel was more of a realist, and he said, let's get to the bottom of this and say that we are going to lose people this season. I'm worried about the elderly. A lot of them, they don't get as much resources, and many of them are too prideful to ask for help. Too worried about younger people. Too worried about us. What makes us more special? One of the practitioners said, well, we're doctors. If we die, it's going to be very difficult for other people. I mean, look at Daniel. He was, of course, talking about me. He helps us out in here all the time. He's learned quite a bit. I would say he's pretty valuable. My dad would speak up. Just because he knows what he's doing doesn't mean that he's more valuable than anybody else. It was quiet. A sound of indifference filled that room. Dr. Patel stood up from his chair as I could hear it creak and move out from underneath him. We need to go. We're going to do our best with what we have, and we are going to survive. I'm going to save as many people, but that doesn't mean everybody's going to get out of this okay. Winter will be here pretty quick. It's already been getting cold, you've all seen it. Just do your best. They mumbled around and talked for a moment, and then they opened the door. I, of course, scurried across the room and kind of stayed next to another person that was staying in the triage unit. My father and I walked home. Everything that Sam said was starting to come true. A few days later, the whole town was having a meeting, and everybody was arguing. The big group that Sam was talking about leaving was sitting in the back with their arms crossed quietly. Others were sitting quietly as well. Other factions, I would assume, cliques. Small towns like this tend to have them, and in a place of only 400 people, it's not surprising. We heard every topic. Do we have enough guards? Do we have enough food? Do we have enough of this and that? So many concerns. Who's really in charge? Who wants to be in charge? Some people raise their candidacy. They had the opportunity, or we have the decadent society to make that decision. Some people say to go to the school, it's made of brick, it's more defensible. Other people say they want to stay in the town and not live in group communities because of disease. Of course, the doctors all raised their concerns about that, and we weren't getting anywhere. There was just screaming. Everybody was winded up, riled up and angry. People were pointing and shouting, and the leadership, the 4 people that were in charge, couldn't quiet anybody down to save their lives. One of the leaders pulled out a small revolver and fired into the air. A few yells, screams, and gasps filled the room, and then it was quiet. The leader stood up and holstered his firearm and said, "This is not how things are going to be done in this town. Now, we don't have the opportunity or the ability to afford arguments. We have plenty of food, we have plenty of water, we have plenty of things to get us through the winter." That was an immediate lie, I thought in my head. I looked back at Sam quickly, and he was shaking his head. The rest of them knew. "We're gonna be okay. Now," he said as he walked around and paced around looking at everybody, "we're not gonna have any dissension." One of the men stood up. "Is this what it's coming to?" he screamed. "This isn't freedom of any kind." He pointed at the man and said, "Well, last time I checked, we're surrounded by the undead. We're surrounded by the elements, and there are people out there that would kill you for a can of food. So I don't think we're exactly free. You're about as free as a fat child in skinny jeans," he said. "We don't have the luxury of going, well, what am I going to eat tonight? Or what am I going to do?" Not one person said anything. This is not a democracy. We've got to stay alive. This is the cold season. Winter is coming quick. And if we don't hunker down, we don't work together and share resources, you will bet money on yourself that you will die. I would bet money. I would believe that half the people here will die if we do not work together. So we're going to get our stuff straight. He slammed his hand down on the podium. The other leaders were quiet. "We're going to make the transition to the school." People started to mumble and groan and began to protest. Again, he pulled his handgun out and placed it on the podium. It started to begin to get quieter. "We're going to make it there because it's a lot more defensible. Bigger hallways, bigger rooms." One of the doctors stood up. Well, why would we all want to be in cramped places? We're all being put in one position. This town is not very defensible last time I checked," the man stated. "Our walls aren't that great, and the last time I checked, the guys that shot us up a few weeks ago, they didn't care. And the raiders that do come by and check our fences and cut holes in it, they don't mind. We've been able to apprehend them in the night, and you guys don't question it because you don't know about it." Grumbling began to come from the audience. Protesters, people would ask. Thieves? What could it be? Some people were saying, well, maybe it's just people stealing food, or maybe it's people from here just trying to escape and take food with them. Well, maybe it's just someone playing a prank, some other people would say. Thieves? Please. The leader continued, "We're going to go there because there's brick walls, there's concrete, there's plenty of room, there are plenty of facilities, and the rooftops are big enough for people to post up with rifles. Those doors are no easy task to take either. Weld a little bit of steel onto them, and they would be like big gates, a lot more defensible. We could centralize our resources, and it would be a lot easier. The schools get cold," one of the doctors said, "and people being so close, it could be dangerous, and I'm sure people want privacy. We don't have that option," he said. "Of the 400 plus people in this town, do you think we have the time to worry about how comfortable people are?" Dr. Patel stood up. "Sir, I think you're overstepping your bounds. You're only one of 4. And I have not heard the other 3 say anything. Sit down, doctor," he yelled. grasping the handle of his handgun. His hand squeezed. "I'm not going to sit down," he said. "I've seen much worse things than this, and I'm not intimidated by thugs like you. You fail to understand that people being that close together are very vulnerable to communal diseases, flus, and sicknesses." "Well, that's just a risk we're going to have to take," he yelled. "Now sit down." "I will not sit down," Patel barked back. "You are not in charge of me. I am a free man. And the rest of you, men and women, you are free. Why is he up there? Why does he dare to say anything against any of you? We're all armed. We have the ability to fight back. And if a tyrant like this is going to say things like this and tell us how things are going to be and make all the decisions and possibly even lie about our resources," people began to murmur. "Lying about what?" "That's right," he said. The speakers began to speak up. "That's enough." The other elders began to usher towards the front, saying to stop. "Please." "That's right," Patel said. "We're running so low on medical supplies at the clinic. And when you get the flu, we can't just sew that up. We can't patch that up." "Enough!" the leader called out as he waved his handgun in the air. "And how much food is in our shelters, huh? And has any of it been moved? Is it hidden from us? Are we going to starve? What are we going to do about this? There are things you need to tell us." And before he could finish the sentence, the leader shot him. Twice. People screamed and firearms were pulled out and aimed at the leadership. "What the hell are you doing?" some people would yell. "What's going on? Why did he shoot the doctor?" There was confusion, and many people were screaming. Kids were running towards the exits. Guards stood in place. They kept the doors closed. The leader sat up there quietly, holstering his pistol. "He may have been a doctor, but that does not mean he can spread any of these vicious rumors. This is the law in this town. I'm the law. We're the law, and you're going to listen. And if you don't like that, you can freeze out there with the dead." "That's right," he said. The crowd was frightened, and many of the men were pointing guns up at the leadership. "And put those damn guns down," he said. "What are you gonna do, shoot us? There's a whole hell of a lot more people surrounding you than there are pointing at me. And half the guards, if they find out that we get shot, they're gonna come here. You want internal conflict? During this season?" One man called out, "You killed a doctor! Why would you do that?" "Because he's spreading rumors to get you against us. They're trying to break us up. We don't know if he was an infiltrator." I looked back at Sam and the rest of the group, and they were still quietly sitting down. They didn't even flinch. It's like a puppet in strings. I could see it on his face. He was smirking. They knew this was coming. I knew this was coming. My father grabbed me and my mother, held us close. I was scared. Dr. Patel was laying on the ground, bleeding. My father patted me on the shoulder and told me to stay with my mother as he ran over. I told my mother to stay there as well and went over to my father and Dr. Patel. He was hit in the abdomen and once in the chest. People were all around him, bawling and crying, and he was breathing his last. One of the leaders stood up. "Is this what we've come to, pointing guns at each other? Is this what it's going to be?" He looked over at one of the leaders and told him to sit down. "Now we are going to work together, that's true, but we cannot keep doing this." Two guards came up as he snapped his fingers. "Take his gun away." As they walked towards the leader, he pulled out his revolver and began shooting at them. Two bystanders grabbed him by the ankles on the podium and pulled him down to the ground. The other uninjured guard wrestled him to the ground and broke the gun from his hands. They tied him up and dragged him out of there. People cheered. All the while, me and my father were working on Dr. Patel, trying to save his life. The blood was pouring out of him. He was gasping for air. "Oh no," my dad said. His chest cavity, it's filling with air. "Son, we got to get some tools." I reached into my back pocket, trying to fish out that toolkit that he gave. Reaching in, trying to fish it out as fast as I could, but it wouldn't come out. It was snagged on something. As I tried to pull it out of the back pocket, I gripped too tightly and one of the scalpels cut through the mesh and into my hand. I winced and pulled my hand close to me. The blood poured out of my palm. It was horribly painful. One of the bystanders fished the toolkit out of the back pocket and gave it to my father. But by then it was too late. The speakers and the leaders were still talking. Dr. Patel put his hand on my hands. "It's gonna be okay." He tried to get out. "You just be you. And don't worry about anybody else. Stay alive for other people." Dr. Patel's eyes became glassy. He leaned back, and his chest sunk. It was like me and him and my father were the only 3 people in that whole room. People were yelling and screaming, and shots were being fired. That night I sat in my room, bawling my eyes out. "Get out while you can," Sam said. That's how you resolve a problem. And whenever there is a problem, the bad people, they just kill them, or they arrest them. They did it to Jesse. They did it to Dr. Patel. They're going to do it to us. We're going to die in that school, in a cramped room with a bunch of other people that are just as sick, starving, and dying as us. Like cattle. What are we here for? What are we going to do? I cried myself to sleep and I woke up the next morning. My mother was frantic. "We need to leave. We need to leave." "There's no way for us to leave." My father spoke up. "We need to stay here." "She shot... They shot Dr. Patel," she protested. "He's dead. He was your friend." "He was lying." "I don't want anything to happen to you two." I spoke up. "Dad, he wasn't lying. We are running out of food. Now that's enough, son." He yelled back. "We don't have a choice. We don't know this city. We don't know anything about it. You want to go out there in the cold? We're going to freeze to death. We won't last 10 minutes. A big group left last night. They muscled their way through those doors, and I say good riddance. I'm tired of driving around. When we were coming here to the Midwest, we didn't know what to expect, and we lost people along the way. People out there are savages. At least we have that school and these walls. It's our job to make sure everybody's okay, and it's our job to make sure that our friends are okay. Right, Daniel? What about you and your little buddies?" "I didn't even think about them," I said. My father looked at my mother and said, "We don't have a lot of options. The man who shot Dr. Patel is in custody. We will have a new leadership. I'll try for the leadership." My mother looked reassured. I ran out of the front door and ran outside to the cold. What are we doing here? There's going to be a big fight. There's going to be a bad one. A fight for power, a power struggle, I don't know. I'm worried. People who die for a cause are often martyred. And that's when bad things come. I just know it. We'll just have to wait and see.